Well, have you ever noticed how you know what to do, but for some reason you never get on and do it? Well, we are going to be tackling this issue and many others in today's show. That common battle we all face is just getting out of our own way. And to help me talk you through it and come with some great guidance and tips for you, my guest today is a four-time world champion martial artist turned high performance coach and clinical hypnotherapist. And for 11 years, he has been helping global leaders and elite athletes do just this and really level up in terms of their performance, their life and their energy. So welcome to the show, Stuart Wade. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Julia. Thank you for having me on today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, we've got so much to unpack and I'm really looking forward to you. And I know later on we want to get into, because you have a particular system that you use to help people level up and improve every aspect of their life. And we want to guide people through, what it is they need to do and get into a little bit more detail. So everyone stay tuned because this is something you're not going to want to miss. But before we get into all of this, sort of tell us a little bit about yourself so people understand, how you were where you were and you got where you are today. And, I'm interested to find out the part that Bruce Lee and Paul McKenna played in all of that. Let's get into it. So you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So Bruce Lee very much informed my path in life. And I remember when I was probably 5 years old, something like that, because I started training in martial arts when I was 6. So it was
early.
Pretty early, yeah. And I remember watching Enter the Dragon predominantly on the old VHS tapes with my dad in the living room at 5 and a bit years old, and just wanting, just wanting to be like Bruce Lee. That was my focus in life at that point. Saw this guy doing amazing things on screen and wanted to be like him. And fortunately, my parents were very open to enrolling me in some kind of martial art. And we went to a couple of clubs initially, but very quickly settled on one. And it was a Taekwondo club, very local to me, less than a mile away from my house. And as luck would have it, my very first instructor fought in the Olympics. And the master instructor of the club, who was in charge of the whole thing, was the Great Britain coach at the time. And so from day one, I was having top level tuition purely by chance, just geography.
It wasn't planned.
Yeah, it was no grand plan. It was purely luck of the draw, but it really stood me in good stead to excel in martial arts. And I had a natural skill and talent for it anyway. But I just absolutely loved it. I loved the training. I loved going through the belt. I hated competing, I have to say, at that age when I was so young. I did not enjoy the competition side of it at that point. That came a little bit later. I got my black belt at the second time of asking, just before my 9th birthday. And there's more of a story to that I can go into later if you want to. And as I got a little bit older, 10, 11, 12 years old, I started competing a bit more and I actually started enjoying it more and, not surprisingly, having a bit more success. And I was first selected to compete for Great Britain when I was 13. Started competing internationally at that point each year, but when I was about 16, I started a visualization practice that I don't recall where I picked it up. It may have been Paul McKenna at that point, but I'm not aware of that. He came later on. And this visualization practice really just put me into the perfect frame of mind to give my best performance out there in competition. And I started having more success at international level. And I'm very grateful to have won 4 world championships across my time competing. In my early 20s, I'd finished at university, got my degree in applied sport and exercise science, and I was a personal trainer at this point. And I went through some difficulties myself with my confidence in my fitness. I lost a bunch of tournaments on the bounce because I got fatigued really badly. And it messed with my head, completely messed with my head. And I got referred to a hypnotherapist by a friend. This guy, whatever he did, flicked the switch in my subconscious to where that fatigue and confidence issue was no longer a thing. And I didn't change anything else. I didn't change my diet, probably should have done. I didn't change my training regime either. So the only thing that I had really changed was between my ears. And so it really opened my eyes to the power of our minds. And a little bit later on, I was lucky enough to win a competition to go and work with Paul McKenna down at his house in London. And he did some hypnosis with me on that day and some havening as well, which is another modality. And that was the real light bulb moment for me. And I said to Paul on that day in, when was it now? 2013. I need to understand more of this. I want to study. I want to get qualified in all of this because it's incredible. What do I need to do? And that's when he referred me to his mentor, Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-founder of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And he said, you need to start by studying with Dr. Bandler because he taught me everything that I know. And so that's what I did. And the rest is history.
And here you are today, highly successful coach. So to help people kind of understand a little bit about, hypnotherapy, NLP, a lot of people, they've heard of it, obviously, but they don't really understand, I think, how it would help. And I think especially as we're getting older, these sorts of things and having these different options of ways we can treat things without having to run to the doctor, get tablets or something else. I think it's quite an important pivotal time in life, particularly as we're getting older, as I say, and we're having these crises, if you like, maybe crises of life, midlife crisis, whatever it is. And it doesn't make any difference of how successful you are or your upbringing or anything. It can happen to anyone at any time. And we do tend to sort of maybe go for the option of comfort zone. You lack a bit of energy, you don't have the same energy you did in your 20s and your 30s to get on and motivate yourself, and you lose maybe that purpose. Or on the other hand, maybe you're wanting to continue, maybe get more purpose, more passion in your life, but you don't seem to be able to make the moves, like as I said before, that you need to do. So it's in that sense, how do things like hypnotherapy and NLP really benefit? What have you noticed with your coaching, with all the people you've coached?
It's a really good question, Julia. And the biggest thing with hypnotherapy, NLP, these sorts of modalities is that it's essentially rewiring your nervous system and your subconscious mind. We're processing things that may have been holding us back at a subconscious level. And that is making space for new possibilities. So if there is something that you always wanted to do, but it was either never the right time or life got in the way, whatever the reasoning was, and then you've gotten to a certain point in your life where you think, well, I can't do it now. It's too late for me. It's a common
problem, that, isn't it?
Quite common. And, the reality of it is it might not be too late, depending on what that thing is.
Yeah. Do you find that when people get to that point and you get to the point you think, it's too late, there's nothing I can change now, it can actually start that spiral down into sort of almost like, not necessarily full-blown depression, but negativity and lack of motivation?
Absolutely. It is negative self-talk. And when you repeat these negative self-talk patterns, that can begin to perpetuate limiting beliefs. And these are things that are holding us back psychologically and emotionally. And actually, it's self-inflicted in most cases. Sometimes there is initiation from other parties, but with things like this, it's our perception of the world that's skewed. We think it's too late, so we tell ourselves it's too late. And sure enough, that story takes on a life of its own, and we hold ourselves back then. We essentially keep ourselves prisoner because of the story we've been telling ourselves.
Was there a pivotal point in your life when that happened to you? Because I know obviously a lot of people come into coaching, whether it's fitness coaching, nutrition, or some other aspect of this, that something in their own life triggered this. Like you said, you realised the hypnotherapy really helped you. But was there a pivotal point that made you consider that or take that route?
The two, or rather, I have three pivotal points really in my life. And the first one was that first black belt grading. I was told by my instructors that I would walk it. 8 years old. I'm, listening to these people who are highly qualified, high performers, and they're telling me I'm going to walk it. So I can't say whether that made me complacent or not, but I certainly remember taking a lot of heart from that and a lot of confidence. And I, along with many, many, many other people, that particular grading failed.
Right. Okay.
The panel of Korean masters and grandmasters were particularly harsh that day. And just to illustrate the point, a coach load of 40 to 50 students from my hometown, including myself, went down to Stevenage for this particular grading. Of those 40 to 50 students that traveled down, only 3 passed.
Wow.
So these were some of the best students in my hometown that were going to test for their black belt, and the vast majority of them failed, or quote unquote failed. So after that initial heartbreak for me, I found some fire, I found some resilience within myself, and I made a decision at that point at 8 years old. I never wanted to feel like that again. And I'm very grateful to say that I never did fail another grading after that. But that was one pivotal moment for me. The other one would be discovering visualization when I was 16. I'd already been competing internationally at this point for 3 years and having moderate amounts of success. I wasn't winning anything major at this point. I was getting third places, bronze medals, silver medals, that kind of stuff, but I hadn't won anything big at this point. Once I engaged with visualization and started implementing it into my routine, I began to build an expectation that I was going to win. In my mind, I'd already won. It was just a matter of reality catching up. And that's when I started to have a lot more success internationally and ended up winning more European championships and world championships. So that's the second pivotal moment. And the third one would be that time in my early 20s when I had that crisis of confidence with the fatigue, because it was so unexpected. It came out of nowhere and I couldn't consciously attribute it to any particular thing. I was just feeling so lethargic in competition. My body wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. And of course, I ended up telling myself then that it was a major issue and it's going to happen again. And of course, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy for a number of tournaments on the bounce until I got some help with it from this clinical hypnotherapist in my hometown at the time. And so those 3 instances are real pivotal moments for me in my life and my journey. They really shaped who I am and what I do now.
Yeah. I mean, would you say as well, because you had that failure when you were very young, and then obviously you reached that point where you fatigued, it was kind of, could it have been a sense of, oh my God, it's happening again, when you'd had that sort of period of success and it's sort of locked in there in your subconscious, and then, oh, something goes wrong and boom, that you get this sort of image or sense that it's all going to happen again?
It's very possible. I can't confirm or deny it, in all honesty. It's very possible because, as you know, our subconscious works in mysterious ways, and sometimes it puts 2 and 2 together and makes 15, you know, and it can relate things that seemingly unrelated on the surface, and it can put them together and cause a psychological, emotional, and a physiological effect in us. So it could very well be that that there was a link somewhere in the back of my mind.
But when it comes to obviously the people that you help, I mean, what is there sort of like a common thing that they come, because one assumes, well, if you've had, particularly those who are already successful, like you've worked with elite athletes and global leaders, you look at them and you think, wow, they've reached the pinnacle of success. How could they possibly have any of these issues? And is there something that kind of triggers them to come to you for your help? Is there a common thread, or is it sort of everyone's just very different?
People are very different, but generally speaking, they want one of 3 things. And oftentimes it's more than one of these 3 things, but they come with one in mind. It's either performance enhancement. They've already had a lot of success, but they've maybe hit a ceiling and they want to overcome that and progress even further. It could be that they're under a lot of stress. There may be stuff going on that's outside of the business or their sport, you know, stuff that's going on in their personal lives. Could even be things like unresolved trauma as well, that's not related directly to the business or to their sport, but it's having a knock-on effect in how they show up day to day. And the other one is anxiety for similar sort of reasons. You know, there could be a buildup of stuff over time that's just compounded, and they've pushed it down and gritted their teeth and got on with things, you know.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a pivot point, a crunch time, when you can't push it down anymore and something's got to give. So generally, it's one or more of those three things that I see people for.
Yeah. And are they aware of, when it comes to things like unresolved trauma, are they aware of it, or is it something that comes out when they're working with you? Is it something like, oh, I didn't realize that? Yes, that is something that I do feel that's has been hindering my ability to move forward. Or is that something that they're aware of it, but they've just not actually faced it?
In my experience, it's more the latter. They're aware of it, but they haven't properly faced it or allowed it to be processed yet. They've pushed it down and just got on with things. But in the rare occasion that I've come across, they're not even consciously aware of it. There's some kind of resistance subconsciously to something that they're doing or something that they're experiencing at that point. And it's causing an effect in the body and the nervous system, but they don't know what or why. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of exploration in hypnosis to uncover some of these things so that they can be then processed.
Yeah.
But there are ways of doing it, for lack of a better term, covertly as well, where we don't have to confront that particular trauma head on. We can do it in disguise, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you say about, with the hypnotherapy and that sort of neurological, how it sort of impacts the body as well, because I'm a great believer in mind-body connection and your external environment, how it affects you internally, and those traumas and stresses, how they can over a length of time, if not dealt with, can actually impact your health really negatively. And then this, of course, is then going to have a knock-on effect to how you show up every day in your life and those goals you wish to achieve. So in terms of how does when you're dealing with someone like that, how does the hypnotherapy help, if that makes any sense?
Hypnotherapy is a heightened state of, or rather hypnosis is a heightened state of focus on a particular aspect of ourselves and what we want. So if there's something that's happened in our lives that is holding us back, we can help to process that subconsciously and neurologically, because as you said there, that the body keeps the score.
It does.
And so these things can have a physiological effect if we don't process them at a subconscious and neurological level. So the work that we do, if it is hypnosis, sometimes I'll use other modalities as well, like EMDR and EFT, tapping, things like this, depending on what resonates with the person that's in front of me and what their issue is, let's say, because hypnosis is not necessarily the best thing for someone with a severe traumatic experience. EMDR would be, or blast technique, which is something that I do that combines hypnotic suggestion as well as eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing. That sort of thing is really powerful for helping to process traumas. And then we can build from that once we've processed it with hypnosis for how they want to be, where they want to go, what their goal is essentially for themselves. It very much depends on the individual, but we can do some really powerful things with it.
Yeah. And is it all just about the sort of hypnosis, the EMDR, all this kind of stuff, or is there other physical aspects that you use as well? Because obviously I always think, sport and business in particular, there's a huge crossover there of things. You can use many techniques used in sport and methodology that can actually be quite effective for people at or want to be at a high performing level in their life or in their business or whatever it may be. Is there an element of that you use, and has your experience as an athlete really helped those skill sets? Because you talked about visualization, and visualization is something that is used in sport a lot and has been for a long time, as we know, very beneficially in terms of, achieving success. So have you taken some of that into what you do as well?
Absolutely. And I'm very much a believer that we need to address things subconsciously, 100% with hypnosis and related modalities, but we live in the 3D material world. We're consciously aware most of the time. And so if we're only dealing with things in hypnosis and then we're going about our day-to-day lives in the same environment, doing the same things day in, day out, we're actually trying to move forward with our foot on the accelerator and the other one on the brake. So we need to do more practical exercises as well to really bolster the work we do in hypnosis subconsciously to help us to move forward. So I absolutely use other techniques as well to build on the work that we do in our sessions outside of it. And yeah, my time as an athlete and a competitor really helped as well to give me some other practical tools that I can utilize with my clients, because sport really is a microcosm for life. And the vast majority of people who are into sport, you know, obviously if someone's not into sport, it might not resonate as well, but most people can resonate on some level with sports and high performance. And so being able to relay that to them, it often is very easily understood by the client and adopted.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting, because I've certainly noticed in my time coaching people is that a lot of the high performers, especially entrepreneurs, business people, they do value sport, and a lot of them do take part in sport, albeit not necessarily professionally, but they value it as part of their lifestyle, and they actually take it quite seriously.
Absolutely. And I find that with most of my clients, where particularly the business people, they're so competitive. And so they have the business that's one outlet for it, but then they also play competitive sport. Or if it's not competitive in respect of entering tournaments and things like that, recreationally, they'll get very competitive with their training partners. And they're very much of that kind of mindset.
But that could be quite a positive thing for helping you break through those barriers as well, knowing you that certain level of competition and having, whether it's friends or colleagues, that you can actually, I wonder if that sort of really helped you break through and say, yeah, I could do this, because it just gives you that support. And I think having social support is really beneficial, particularly as we're getting older as well.
Yeah, 100%. If we surround ourselves with supportive, like-minded people that are on our wavelength, it's really going to help us to be a better version of ourselves. And we know from some of the statistics that come out about loneliness how detrimental it is to our health. So having a strong, doesn't have to be big, but having a strong, supportive social circle really is important.
Yeah. And in terms of sort of, obviously, as we're getting older as well, we experience more physical aches and pains. We're at more risk from health issues, all these kinds of things. So is this, obviously this can hold you back significantly in, you know, if you have a goal or a purpose, or you think, you know, you're worried about your future and you're starting to see degeneration, decline, that kind of thing. So is this something that you've noticed a lot is a motivator for people to say, right, I need to do something about this as well?
Absolutely. And you touched on it before, Julia, where that mind-body connection, we can't escape it. And so if we are mentally more positive, more confident, feeling healthier in our minds, that has a profound effect on the body and can actually reduce the effect of certain ailments that we may be experiencing. And if anything that we can do outside of popping loads of pills, like you said before, it's a good thing in my book if we can do that. It's something that's natural, it's endogenous to us. We don't have to take anything. We have all the chemistry within us to affect a real positive change in the mind and the body. So I would recommend anybody to really take a look and take some inventory as to their mindset and what may be going on subconsciously, that they could actually affect a more positive change in their physical health with it too.
Okay, so as we're getting older, obviously we get a lot of health conditions and these sort of problems occur, and you can cause these anxieties, these worries and concerns. Have you ever noticed that for a lot of people as they get older, that they tend to sort of make excuses a lot more? They hold themselves back. Oh, I'm too old. You can't make me any younger. I mean, I know I spoke to my father a while ago and I was trying to help him, and he kind of said, you can't make me feel any younger. I said, this is not about you being younger. It's about, you know, keeping you independent, helping you walk and be healthy and do all those things. Is that something that's quite common that you find?
It's definitely common. And us Brits love to complain about things and tell other people about the things that are holding us back. But it used to be that the thought was, once you get to around 35 years old, your full perception of the world, your perception of yourself, your own limitations, etc., that's all set in stone and you can't change that then. But
Mm.
modern neuroscience shows that neuroplasticity is ongoing until you stop breathing, essentially. So it doesn't matter what age we are, we can always change the way that we're thinking, feeling, behaving, showing up in the world, even our health conditions. And I recall this particular study from a neuroscientist in the States who did this study a number of years ago, where she took I forget the number exactly, but she took let's say a dozen senior citizens to a retreat center that was set up the way that it was in their youth. So the music would be playing from their youth. It was all set up with the games that they enjoyed to play when they were younger. The decor, everything was like it was when they were young, fit and healthy. And they took bloods beforehand and after. They measured certain biomarkers, and every single person that attended was showing that they were actually younger than their biological age by the time they left this place, because they were immersed. Their sensory experience was that of a younger person, a younger them. And so our perception of the world as we live in it is guided by our senses, the things we can smell, hear, taste, touch, see. And if all of that stuff is reflecting a time when we're young, happy, fit, healthy, etc., our brain's going to accept that. Well, I must be young, fit, and healthy. This is what I remember. And so it's a great example of how we can affect our physiology and our experience in the world by tuning our environment and then getting our mindset and our brain on board with that as well. It's a really powerful thing. And I always talk about this with visualization to people. Don't just think about the things you can see. It's a full sensory experience. Think about the things you can hear. Think about the physical sensations. What can you touch? What's the texture feel like? Notice any smells and tastes that may be there in that visualization. And notice, most importantly, how you feel emotionally. Because if we can engage all of our senses like this, our brain accepts it as fact. It doesn't necessarily know the difference between what's going on between our ears and what's going on out there. And so it just accepts it. This is the reality. And so that's how powerful our minds are.
Yeah. And is this kind of like a starting point? So sort of getting into a little bit about the system that you use when you're coaching someone. Is sort of visualization helping train someone with visualization? Because it's not always easy. I mean, that's something I've struggled with. You know, how can I taste or smell or know how things feel if I've not experienced it yet? So it's something I want to plan for. It's a goal I have, but I don't know what it's like to hold a trophy at Wimbledon. I don't know. I don't know what it's like to have £1 billion in my hand. You know, it's all these things. It's how do you sort of start? Because it has to be, like you say, it has to be quite real, and you have to spend surely some time with it until you become efficient at visualization.
Yeah, as with anything, practice makes permanent. The more we can practice it, the better we're going to get at it. But in answer to your question, Julia, and it's a great one, because some people, I had a client recently actually who she just struggled to visualize things in her mind's eye. It was a struggle for her. And so if we're talking in NLP terms, the visual system was not her representational system of choice. She was much more in tune with her feelings and emotions, and even the physical sensation, touch, that kind of thing. She was much more able to tune into that. And so with her, my focus is on the feelings. I'm telling her, or rather suggesting to her, about the feelings that she would want to experience rather than the things that she can see. Because for her, the visuals came later. Once we can get the feelings right and the tactile sensations, then we can start to build on the other stuff that may not be as readily available for us depending on our own makeup. It very much depends on the individual and what speaks to you. And so a clue to it is also the words that you use. So if you are someone who talks about seeing the big picture and having clarity and these kind of things, they're all visual terms. And so that's a clue that actually the visual stuff might really resonate with me. If you're talking more about, well, I feel a certain way, or that feels off, I don't like the vibe there, things like that, you might be more of a feeling person. And the same goes for auditory as well. So having that awareness initially of what might resonate the best with you can inform the way that you start your practice of visualization.
So, okay, let's get back into your system, Wick, because I'm really, everyone's going to want to know, right, let's get to the system. We want the system. And I know you can't give the whole system away, but how to sort of inspire people, so that little tips, little strategies that they can sort of take away and start getting motivated, and maybe some things they can start implementing themselves. How do they start on this journey, this process of getting out of their own way and start giving in to all the negativity or going back into their comfort zone?
Great question. First thing is awareness. If you are not where you want to be, if you're not feeling the way that you want to feel, if you're not doing the things that you want to be doing, take a pen and paper. It's always better to handwrite it if you can on some paper rather than on the notes on your phone or a computer.
It's something I find better. I connect with it a lot better when I do it pen and paper, hard copy.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Get it down on paper. What is it that's the issue there? Where are you now? Where would you like to be? If you don't know where you'd like to be, that's fine. Just write down where you are now. If you're not liking it, if something is not sitting well with you, get it down on paper, and then we can assess critically without judgment. First of all, okay, is this statement valid? Am I not where I want to be for a legitimate reason? If yes, okay, what can I do about it? Make some notes, brainstorm, make some notes, come up with some suggestions, because once we write it down on paper, we get it out of our heads and onto paper, and we can judge it objectively then. It's a process called metacognition, where we actually take our thoughts out of our mind, get it on paper, and it provides some distance from it. So that's the first step, having that awareness, writing down where we are now, and then where we want to be. And if we don't know where we want to be, write some solutions as to why we might be where we are now and what could be a better alternative.
Because I do think as well, when you just think about it and you get it on the paper, because it becomes very overwhelming.
Absolutely.
In your head. And once you write it down, you think, well, actually, it's not that bad. There's not that much to do. Yeah,
that's right. It's very easy for it to become overwhelming and to just continue ruminating on all these negative thoughts, because again, our subconscious mind doesn't necessarily want to make us happy. It wants us to survive and to reproduce. And so if we have these limitations, let's say, for lack of a better term, in our heads, and we're not getting them out on paper, our subconscious mind is going to look for reasons to justify that, because it's getting outside of that is the unknown, and it's a perceived threat then, because better the devil you know than the one you don't. So if you're used to feeling this way, anything that's deviating from that is going to be perceived as a potential threat. And so if we don't get it out of our heads and onto paper, we're just going to keep swirling and swirling and swirling and coming up with all the justifications for staying like that. Yeah. So getting it down on paper like that is really the first step. And then if we know where we want to go, then we can reverse engineer from that. What do we need psychologically, emotionally, and then physically? What action steps do we need to take? What simple tasks do we need to take? We really reverse engineer it from there.
And then what comes next after that?
So once we've identified where we want to be and where we are now, then we need to process all the things that we perceive that have been holding us back. Oftentimes it could be things from childhood. There could be initial sensitizing events from when we were young that installed some negative programming within us, because oftentimes from the day we're born until around 9 years old, we are just a sponge. We are absorbing everything about the world around us, caregivers, teachers, friends, etc. We don't have our critical faculties at this point. And so we hear something or we learn something and it just gets absorbed and it just gets taken on board as a fact, when actually it's not necessarily the case. But that goes into our programming, and then later on, as we get older, we're still running these automatic programs. So we need to unpack some of that. Is there some stuff that went into our subconscious mind when we were young that's been perpetuating itself as an automatic program that we need to rewire? We need to change that program to something that's more empowering, more positive, that's going to help us to get to where we want to be. So that's the next step. It's processing that stuff and then going into rewiring that stuff neurologically and subconsciously.
And I think when it comes to that, particularly when it comes to something like any past, problems or issues that crop up, you've got to be, I think it's really important for me to note that you've got to be patient with yourself, because sometimes it can be difficult. We can not want to face those things on one level because maybe it has an emotional effect on you, or you just don't, you feel you've dealt with it, but secretly it's still been there and below the surface. But it's important that it comes out and you get rid of it and move forward from it, so it no longer holds you back. But I think it's important in those times as well to just be patient with yourself, and it can take some time. And I think with something like that, you do need someone like yourself to help coach you through it, or you need someone quite supportive around you to help take you through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Give yourself some grace, because oftentimes it wasn't your fault that this stuff got installed there. It was just happenstance or some experience that you had that was outside of your control at the time, but it installed this programming within you. And so it's not your fault. That's the thing, to remind yourself to be kind to yourself. And like you say, take your time, be patient getting through this. It's not a case of whipping through it and it's all going to get sorted super quick. It doesn't have to be. We're not in a race here. And so having some support, whether it is from a professional or some very trusted confidant that's not going to judge and is just as a sounding board, as somebody to support you through the process, it can be really, really helpful. Because sometimes, we can't see the wood for the trees if we're trying to do stuff ourselves. And oftentimes people like me and trusted confidants, as I said, can uncover the blind spots that we might have to what our experience is in reality, and that can help us to move forward then with that support.
So once someone's got it all down on paper and they've then dealt with all the past stories, the programming, that's some things that have been programmed into them, what next happens in that stage once they're sort of coming through that, and they can then sort of be a bit clearer in positively moving forward?
So this is the orchestrate part of my PRO method. So process, rewire, orchestrate. And that's where we've processed all the stuff that was holding us back. We've rewired our neurology to support a positive journey forwards. And now we're orchestrating that journey forward. So where do we want to go? What is the thing that we want to do? How do we want to feel? What's the goal? And then we're working towards that. We're building up that subconscious framework to facilitate uncovering that vision and realizing that vision in reality. And we're taking some positive action steps as well in order to get to that vision. It could be something that could be quite soon in the offing, or it could be something that's a bit further down the line. It really depends on what it is that person wants, but we're installing everything subconsciously that they would need to facilitate that vision and help them get to where they want to be. And
that's so is there another step after that?
So after that, hopefully they've achieved their goal, and that's that. And so sometimes my clients, when they've gone through the program and they're all good, they feel like they want a little top-up session now and again to keep them dialed in and on top of it, because let's face it, life happens, and sometimes if we're not being totally mindful all the time, and let's be honest, who is, we can sometimes fall back into old ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving if we're not careful, and start to bring back some of the stuff that we processed before, because it's not erasing the memory. We're just desensitizing it. But because of how powerful our brains are and how strong those neural connections are, sometimes some of it can creep back in if we're not careful. And so some of my clients just want a top up now and again, just to keep them on top of things. And it's more for them and their own peace of mind than anything. But generally speaking, that they're released into the wild, and they can go and live their best lives at that point.
Yeah, because as well, it's like time. You know, how people are going to say, well, how long does it take? Because we're in this sort of environment now that we want everything quickly. And the body, the mind is very good at recovering, repairing itself and doing all the right things. But you do need to give it time, and sometimes creating these habits so you don't drop back into old behaviors. It takes time to instill them and repetition and keep doing it. And it's going to be different for, I guess, for each person. Some people are going to be, move forward much quicker than others. But I think it's important not to expect it to happen overnight, or I want to feel better tomorrow or next week. For some people, it may take a few weeks. For other people, it may take a few months. Who knows? But I think it's as well, it's really good to understand that, not everything has to be a quick, immediate result. Sometimes the best things are worth waiting for, and to just slow down and reconnect with yourself, I think, as well, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Studies show that to fully install new ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving, it takes at least 66 days of purposeful practice each day. So that's not just one session a week and then you're doing nothing in between. That's every day, 66 days continuously, to really shift the new neural pathways into place.
Yeah.
And so you're exactly right, Julie. It takes time. And some people are going to respond more quickly than others, and that's fine. It's no commentary on that person or anything like that. It's purely their journey and their experience, and we want to do everything we can to facilitate really making that positive change last for them.
Yeah, and that's the key. It's knowing that this is for life. It's not just something that you could, well, some people might want to keep doing it, they might love it and want to keep going back for all the time for the rest of their life, which is great for you. And you want to facilitate that so that they become sort of independent of you and can keep moving forward positively, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's giving them the tools that they need to be able to do it on their own. That's it. I don't want them to have to rely on me as a crutch. That's not the point.
So do you give them, like, each day, do you provide them with some sort of exercise or some little task that they have to do for the length of time you're working with them?
Yeah. The way that I do it is the hypnosis portion of what we do in our sessions is all recorded audio, and I put some binaural beats music to that for enhanced brainwave entrainment. I'll collate it into a recording and send that to them after the session so that they can re-listen to the session, depending on when I see them next, a few times, to really help to build and enhance those new neural pathways in the brain. And I also give them a little technique to do each day as well. And it could be any number of things. It could be an anchor, it could be a gratitude journal, it could be an affirmation, depending on what we're doing and what resonates with them. Just a little technique to practice every day to keep them on top of it and keep them in that state of mind where we want them to be.
Yeah. And what kind of transformations are people seeing?
It's a great question. And I've done so much in terms of working with different people and different goals that it's really interesting to reflect back on, because one client, for example, was a very successful businesswoman, and she wanted to lose weight. That was her thing, because the weight was getting her down. And of course, that then was affecting how she was showing up at work each day. She wasn't as confident, even though she was a bit of a superwoman, to be honest, running 3 successful businesses, a real titan in that respect. But the weight was affecting her confidence. And so work started to suffer because of that. And so with her, it was, let's address the confidence and the weight issues. And I'm very proud to say that from the onset of our work together, in the preceding 2 months, she lost 2 stones in weight and kept it off after that.
Yeah.
Because what we did, we tapped into her subconscious and the real issues that were causing her to overeat or eat the wrong foods, whatever it was. And we boosted her confidence back up. And so she had the resources to be able to take the positive actions with her diet. And she was already training a lot anyway, so the exercise wasn't an issue. And then, of course, that had a positive impact on the business as well. And she started getting more deals and things started going better in that respect. Another result that I had with a very high net worth client of mine from abroad, and again, running a very, very successful business already, but personal stuff going on outside of it that was bringing itself into the boardroom. And so we dealt with all of that, and the business has grown since the onset of our work together. He's pulling in multiple 8 figures more each year than he was, put it that way.
That's a significant improvement.
Yeah. So obviously I'm trying to be as vague as I can with all of this, confidentiality reasons, but yeah. So while the work may sometimes be outside of the business indirectly, it has a direct correlation to how they're showing up and the things they're doing in business. So that's just 2 examples of a hell of a lot that I could rattle off to you.
Well, this is the thing. I'm also a great believer that, your health and fitness is the core of everything else in your life, whether it's your wealth, your relationships, your time and your energy, the success you have. At the center of it, for me anyway, is this real strong sense of your health and fitness, mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. All these things are at the center, because once that's in place, you can, as you've shown, you can have a major impact on everything else. That's
right. It's a bit of a cliche, the whole health is wealth thing, but it's very true, because if you are not healthy, however that is, it's going to affect every single area of your life, all the things that you're doing yourself, but then also ripples out into your relationships as well. Yeah. You're not being the best version of yourself because you've got some health issue that's going on. And obviously, some of it we can't do anything about, but if it's related to lifestyle and the thoughts that we're thinking, the way that we're feeling, etc., then there is something that we can do about it. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You're so right in everything you say. And obviously I'm going to agree with you. Very much on the same page. Look, Stuart, this has been a fabulous conversation. Now, if people want to get hold of you, they're interested to find out more about you, where is the best place that they can seek you out? Absolutely. LinkedIn is the place that I'm most prolific nowadays. I go by Stuart Wade in there, and high performance mindset coach and clinical hypnotherapist. The profile photo is me in a suit looking all smiley. So if you look for that, you'll find it there on the list. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is Stuart Wade, the Mind Coach, and Instagram, my handle is @the Mind Coach UK. And I also have a website, which is all one word, themindcoach.co.uk. And any of those channels, you can find me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Well, there you have it, people. You get on that phone, get on the website, message him, start 2026 in a much more positive way. But look, Stuart, thank you so much for joining me. You've been so insightful. We've learned a lot, and it's certainly made a difference to many people's lives, I'm sure. So thank you for joining me, and everyone else for listening in. I hope you found it beneficial, and I'd like to say goodbye from myself and from Stuart, and join us next time on Unleash Your Inner Athlete.